New airport rules in 2026. That will change how you travel forever. Everything you know about airport security is about to become obsolete. In less than 2 months, new TSA regulations take effect that will fundamentally change how you pack, what you can bring, and how long you spend in security lines. Some travelers will breeze through in 60 seconds. Others will face delays they never imagined. And the most shocking part, most airlines aren't telling passengers about these changes until it's too late. Here's what you absolutely must know right now. One new rule bans a common item that 90% of travelers currently pack without thinking twice. Another regulation introduces technology that can see through your clothing in ways previous scanners couldn't. And there's a change to liquid rules that sounds like good news, but actually creates a trap that could cost you hundreds of dollars in confiscated items. Stay until the end, because rule number 1 will either save you hours of frustration or turn your next trip into a security nightmare, depending on whether you know about it in advance. New Rule 10. The Digital ID Requirement. Let's start with the change that affects every single traveler. By March 2026, traditional driver's licenses from certain states will no longer be accepted as valid ID for domestic flights. This isn't a rumor or a suggestion. It's federal law that's been delayed multiple times but is now finally being enforced. Here's what's actually happening. The Real ID Act requires all state-issued identification to meet specific security standards. If your state hasn't complied, your current driver's license becomes worthless at airport security. And here's the twist that catches people off guard. You might think your license is fine because it looks official and hasn't expired. But unless it has a star symbol in the upper right corner, it doesn't meet Real ID standards. Millions of Americans still carry non-compliant IDs and have no idea they'll be turned away at security. The alternative? You'll need a passport card, or enhanced driver's license. If you show up without proper identification, you're not flying. Period. But there's another digital change happening simultaneously. 25 major airports are launching biometric identification systems that scan your face instead of checking physical documents. You walk up to security, look at a camera, and the system verifies your identity in 2 seconds. Your facial scan is stored in a federal database indefinitely. Every airport visit creates a permanent record of your movements. New Rule 9. The Lithium Battery Restrictions. Now let's talk about the rule that's going to surprise millions of travelers who rely on portable electronics. Starting January 2026, new restrictions on lithium batteries are being enforced across all US airports. These rules have existed in some form for years, but enforcement has been inconsistent. That's about to change dramatically. Here's what you need to know. Portable chargers and power banks over 100 watt-hours are now completely banned from both carry-on and checked luggage. You cannot bring them on planes under any circumstances. But here's the problem. Nobody explains clearly. Most travelers have no idea what watt-hours their devices contain. The information isn't prominently displayed on most portable chargers. You have to calculate it using the milliamp-hour rating and voltage. If you show up with a non-compliant battery, it will be confiscated immediately with no option to mail it home or return it to your car. That expensive high-capacity power bank you bought for international travel? Gone. And there's another restriction that affects everyday items. Spare batteries must now be carried in original packaging or have terminals taped to prevent short circuits. Loose batteries in your bag can cause security delays or confiscation. This includes spare batteries for your camera, laptop backup batteries, even AA and APOA batteries rolling around in your luggage. New Rule 8. The Enhanced Baggage Screening. Here's the change that's going to make packing more complicated than ever. New CT scanning technology is being deployed at security checkpoints nationwide. Unlike traditional X-ray machines, these scanners create 3D images of your bag's contents. This sounds like an improvement, and in some ways, it is. The technology can identify threats more accurately and theoretically allows you to leave laptops and liquids in your bag. But there's a catch that airlines aren't publicizing. The enhanced imaging reveals everything in unprecedented detail. Security officers can now see items that previously went unnoticed. That forgotten pocket knife buried in your bag's lining. The scanner finds it. The scissors you didn't realize were in your toiletry kit. Confiscated. The old scanners missed small items or items positioned certain ways. The new technology misses nothing. And here's what's causing unexpected delays. The 3D images require more time for security officers to analyze. Instead of glancing at a two-dimensional X-ray, they're rotating and examining three-dimensional renderings of your bag's contents. Wait times are actually increasing at airports with the new technology, despite promises of faster screening. But there's another complication with the laptop rule. While the technology theoretically allows you to keep electronics in your bag, many airports are maintaining the old remove your laptop policy during the transition period. The rules change depending on which airport you're at and which security lane you enter. New Rule 7. The Prohibited Item Expansion. Now we get to the rule that's going to catch millions of unprepared travelers. The TSA is dramatically expanding its prohibited items list, banning products that were previously allowed or existed in a grey area. Some of these changes seem logical, others appear arbitrary and frustrating. Let's start with what you can know. Longer bring. Self-defense items like pepper spray, tasers, and tactical pens are now banned from both carry-on and checked luggage on all domestic flights. Previously, pepper spray was allowed in checked bags under certain conditions. Not anymore. But here's the ban that affects everyday travelers most. Certain types of battery-powered personal care devices are now prohibited. This includes some electric razors, hairstyling tools with lithium batteries, and heated beauty devices. The rule stems from fire concerns, but it's inconsistently applied and poorly communicated. You might have traveled with your hair straightener dozens of times without issue. Now, it could be confiscated depending on the specific model and battery type. And there's a food restriction that surprises international travelers. Liquid or gel-like foods in containers over 3.4 ounces are now explicitly banned, even if they were purchased after security at an international airport. This includes items like honey, jam, and thick sauces. But here's where the confusion reaches peak frustration. The definition of gel-like is subjective and varies by security officer. Peanut butter, hummus, and even certain cheeses have been classified as gels and confiscated. There's no clear guidance on which foods are acceptable and which aren't. New Rule 6. The checked baggage weight enforcement. Here's the change that's going to cost unprepared travelers serious money. Airlines are implementing universal weight enforcement with zero tolerance for overweight bags. The days of friendly gate agents letting a few extra pounds slide are over. Automated systems now flag every overweight bag automatically. Here's what's changing specifically. Every checked bag is now weighed on calibrated scales connected to the airline's computer system. If your bag is even 1 pound over the limit, you'll be charged the overweight fee. There's no human discretion involved anymore. The computer flags it, and the fee is automatically added to your account. But here's the fee structure that shocks travelers. Overweight charges have increased dramatically. Many airlines now charge $100 to $200 for bags between 50 and 70 pounds. Bags over 70 pounds can cost $300 or more, if they're accepted at all. Some airlines simply refuse bags over certain weights, forcing you to repack at the counter or abandon items. And there's a new restriction on bag dimensions. Linear dimension limits are now strictly enforced. A bag that's the right weight but slightly oversized will be rejected or charged as oversize. Those expandable suitcases that you've been using for years. They might be too large when fully expanded, even if they're under the weight limit. But here's the trap that catches business travelers. Carry-on weight limits are now being enforced at many airports, something that was rarely checked before. Your carry-on can weigh no more than 15 to 22 pounds depending on the airline. Gate agents are now using handheld scales to weigh carry-ons before boarding. New Rule 5, the liquid allowance changes. Now let's talk about the rule that sounds like good news but creates new problems. Some airports are piloting programs that allow liquids over 3.4 ounces in carry-on bags when using advanced CT scanners. This seems like the end of the liquid restrictions that have frustrated travelers for nearly 20 years. But here's the complication nobody's explaining. The rule only applies at specific airports with specific equipment in specific security lanes. Most airports aren't upgrading their equipment, which means the liquid rule still applies in most places. You might be allowed to bring full-size toiletries through security at one airport, then have them confiscated on your return trip. And there's another restriction that's actually getting stricter. Duty-free liquids purchased at international airports must now be sealed in specific tamper-evident bags to be allowed on US-bound flights. The bag must show the receipt and be unopened. If you break the seal or remove the receipt, even expensive liquor or perfume will be confiscated at your connecting airport. But here's the trap for travelers connecting through US airports. You can buy duty-free liquids at your international departure airport and carry them on your first flight. But when you land in the US and go through customs, you'll be subjected to TSA screening again. At that screening, your duty-free liquids are subject to the 3.4-ounce rule unless they're in the proper bag. Many travelers lose hundreds of dollars in confiscated alcohol and cosmetics because they didn't understand this connection screening rule. New Rule 4, the biometric boarding process. Here's the change that eliminates paper boarding passes and raises serious privacy questions. Airlines are transitioning to mandatory biometric boarding at most major airports. Instead of scanning a boarding pass, you'll look at a camera that verifies your identity and confirms your flight. This sounds efficient until you understand what's really happening. Your face is being scanned and matched against photos in government databases. This happens without explicit consent for each individual flight. By purchasing a ticket, you're agreeing to facial recognition screening. And here's what travelers aren't being told clearly. Opting out of facial recognition is theoretically possible but practically difficult. You must explicitly request manual document verification, and many gate agents either don't know the procedure or actively discourage it. Some travelers report being told that opting out will cause significant delays and might result in missing their flight. But here's the functionality issue that creates problems. The facial recognition systems have accuracy problems with certain demographics. False rejections force travelers to attempt multiple scans or resort to manual verification anyway. If you've changed your appearance significantly since your ID photo, you might not be recognized at all. Weight changes, aging, new glasses, or hairstyle changes can all cause recognition failures. New Rule 3, the TSA Precheck changes. Now, let's talk about the changes affecting the program that frequent travelers rely on. TSA Precheck is being reformed with new eligibility requirements, higher fees, and altered benefits. The program that promised consistent expedited screening is becoming less predictable. Here's what's changing specifically. The enrollment fee is increasing from $78 to $120 for 5-year memberships. Renewal fees are also rising. The price increase is justified by enhanced vetting procedures, but it prices out some budget-conscious travelers. But there's a more significant change to how the program works. Pre-check status is no longer guaranteed on every flight. Even if you're enrolled in the program, airlines can randomly assign you to standard screening based on automated risk assessments. You might have pre-check on your outbound flight and lose it on your return with no explanation. And here's the benefit reduction that frustrates enrolled members. Some airports are reducing the number of pre-check lanes during off-peak hours, forcing even enrolled travelers into standard screening lines. The time savings you paid for disappears. At smaller airports, pre-check lanes might only operate a few hours per day. New Rule 2, the international connection requirements. Here's the rule that's causing missed flights and ruined vacations. Minimum connection times for international flights arriving in the US are being extended significantly. What used to be acceptable connection times are now considered insufficient by airlines and immigration authorities. The reason? Enhanced customs and border protection screening. Here's what's actually changing. International arrivals must now clear customs, collect checked bags, go through TSA screening again, and recheck bags before their connecting flight. This process previously took 60 to 90 minutes. Under new procedures, budget a minimum of 2 hours, and 3 hours is recommended. But here's the trap that catches travelers. Airlines still sell tickets with connection times under 2 hours because they're technically legal. But practically, these connections are nearly impossible to make. If you miss your connection due to long immigration lines, the airline considers it your responsibility, not a problem they need to solve. You'll be rebooked on the next available flight, which might be the next day. Hotel costs are your responsibility. And there's a new screening requirement at customs. All travelers from certain countries are subject to secondary screening regardless of their passport or visa status. This includes US citizens returning from those countries. Secondary screening adds 30 to 60 minutes to your customs process. New Rule 1. the Advanced Passenger Information Mandate. And now we arrive at the rule that changes everything about booking international flights. Starting in 2026, all international travelers must provide extensive personal information at the time of booking, not at check-in. This information is shared with foreign governments before your flight is even confirmed. Here's what you must provide now. Full legal name exactly as it appears on your passport, passport number and expiration date, date of birth, nationality, gender, country of residence, emergency contact information, and complete arrival address in your destination country. This information must be accurate and complete or your booking will be rejected. But here's the complication that creates booking problems. Many travelers don't have their passport readily available when booking flights months in advance. You can't just enter placeholder information or estimated dates. The airline system verifies passport numbers against government databases in real time. If your passport information doesn't match government records exactly, the booking fails. And there's a renewal issue that catches people. If you book a flight using your current passport, but then renew your passport before traveling, you must contact the airline and update your information. When you arrive at the airport with a new passport number that doesn't match your booking, you could be denied boarding entirely. But here's what makes this rule particularly problematic. The data sharing agreements mean your personal information is transmitted to foreign governments immediately upon booking. You have no control over how that information is stored, used, or protected. Some countries with questionable privacy protections now have access to your passport details, home address, and travel patterns. And there's no opting out of this data sharing if you want to fly internationally. But here's the one thing that will determine whether these new rules destroy your travel plans or become minor inconveniences. Preparation is everything. Travelers who understand these changes and adjust their habits accordingly will move through airports smoothly. Those who show up unprepared will face confiscations, delays, denied boarding, and hundreds of dollars in unexpected fees. And the most critical preparation step is this. Check your specific airline and specific airports for their exact requirements before every trip. The rules aren't uniform across all carriers or locations. What works at one airport might get you in trouble at another. Airport travel in 2026 looks dramatically different than it did just a year ago. These 10 new rules represent the biggest changes to air travel in nearly 2 decades. Some improve security and efficiency. Others create frustration and privacy concerns. But regardless of how you feel about these changes, they're happening. The enforcement begins in weeks, and millions of unprepared travelers will face the consequences. If this breakdown helped you understand what's coming and how to prepare, hit that like button and subscribe for more travel updates that keep you ahead of the curve. Drop a comment below and tell us, which new rule concerns you most? Have you already experienced problems with any of these changes? Your experience might help other travelers avoid the same mistakes. The key to stress-free travel in 2026 is simple. Know the rules before you go, pack accordingly, and give yourself extra time for the inevitable delays. Travel is changing. But with the right preparation, you'll navigate these changes smoothly while others struggle. Safe travels.